is Suresh Prabhu. Suresh Prabhu. Up.
Sir, this Assam Rifles Act 2003 is limited with a legislation with a very limited purpose of replacing the old law with a new one. Obviously, because the old one had become outdated, as is already mentioned, and therefore a new law was required. But sir, if you look at it, considering the magnitude of the problem, see so many of these paramilitary forces who are now working almost at par with our normal military forces have to perform such onerous tasks that now it's about the time that we look at all our security personnel, whether they are working in full military uniforms, the paramilitary forces, even the police forces, and look at this whole larger issue in a proper perspective. And therefore, while this bill is required and we really need to take it forward, it is important that the government must think about to meet this growing challenge of terrorism, of law and order, of maintaining peace on our international borders. We must have a comprehensive legislation which will take care of the needs of the hour. Sir, if you look at it, one of the functions that this Assam Rifles perform is counter-terrorism. So I think counter-terrorism requires a different type of a challenge. So terrorism in modern times is now assuming such proportion that we cannot deal it with only laws of this nature. So as we have seen now, most of the terrorists are willing to die for a cause. If that is what it is, the modern laws were made as a deterrent so that a crime should not be perpetrated. But so many of the crimes that were perpetrated, probably we thought that the highest punishment that could be given is a capital punishment, and therefore if you take away the life of a person, he will be deterred from committing a crime. But here people are willing to die even before the crime is committed, and therefore the type of laws that we need to deal with terrorism are of a different types. The type of forces that we require to deal with terrorism of different types, and therefore so my request is the government would be to come out with a very comprehensive legislation and also a white paper to deal with all these border issues related to internal security, international border security, as well as dealing with a new phenomena that is now growing in the form of terrorism, which is not just confined to the Indian borders, but is of international ramification. And therefore, so this bill is really required to be taken in that fashion. So other point, which was already mentioned by some of the honorable members, is a point that normally when we raise a force, we actually try to talk about the duties, responsibilities, and the way in which if they commit an offense or do something improper, how that impropriety will be dealt with. But we seldom talk about what are the rights of these forces. We talk about responsibility, but seldom talk about rights. Housing is one of such problems. So many of the states we have seen that even police forces, they are supposed to fight all the time, they are supposed to be on the street all the time, but they don't have housing facilities. They don't have enough facilities for their children. And therefore, medical facilities, housing facilities, education facilities for the children are supposed to be guaranteed by the law of this type. And therefore, while we discuss this Assam Rifles Act 2006 now, we should think about such amenities to be provided to this personnel, and we should be an integral part of a legislation of this type. So while I support the bill, I think these type of issues will be taken into account. Thank you, sir.
Barkla Radha